Today's math lesson is taking a look at rational numbers. Now, before we get started talking about what rational numbers are and what we're going to be doing with them, we're going to be talking about all different types of numbers. When you started school way back when, you started talking about natural numbers. Those are our regular counting numbers, our 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Things that my 2-year-old daughter are working on, the natural numbers. Then we extend out a little bit, and our next thing that we discuss is whole numbers. So whole numbers include natural numbers, but they also include the number 0. Then we get a little bit bigger to what we talked about yesterday, are our integers. So here we have those natural numbers, those positive numbers. We have 0 from our whole numbers, but now for integers, we added in the negative side, or opposite numbers. Today, we are going to be adding even more to our rational numbers. Rational numbers are our focus for today, our 2-2. These are any numbers that can be written as a quotient of two integers. Remember, our integers, counting numbers, opposites, and 0. This kind of helps out a little bit. So here, we can write rational numbers as something as a over b, or we could also use negative a over b. So rational numbers include whole numbers, positive, negative, and 0. They also include fractions, and they include decimals. Before we get going on today's assignment, I want to do a little overview of how to turn fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. When we are turning fractions to decimals, we can think of this in two different ways. First, we can think of these as powers of 10. When we think of powers of 10, we want our denominator to be any power of 10. So that's 10, 100, and so on. In this case, I can change it so that's out of 10. To do that, I multiply by 2. I do the same thing on the top, and now I have 2 over 10. I can think about how I say that. I say that as 2/10, which would be written as a decimal as 2/10. Whoops, sorry, there we go, with our math language. You can also think of this as a division problem. 1 over 5 is the same thing as 1 divided by 5. Top number divided by bottom number, numerator divided by denominator. If I plug in my calculator that 1 divided by 5, I get that same answer as 0.2. So to turn a fraction to a decimal, we can change it to powers of 10, or we can use our division method, our top number divided by bottom number. Now, decimals to fractions. For example, if I take a look at this one right here and I have 0.7, I'm going to think in my math language how I say that. I say that as 7, and then the place value, tenths. 7/10, 7 over 10. If I have a number that goes a little bit further, so in this case, 0.23 or 23 hundredths, I'd write that as 23 hundredths, 23 over 100. This will come into play today because what we're looking at for today's assignment is comparing and ordering. Now, comparing, we need to either do equal, less than or greater than. And then ordering, we're going to do least to greatest or greatest to least. When you are comparing and ordering rational numbers, you need to make sure that you are using the same format. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple examples here. The thing that's difficult is if you have something as a fraction, something as a decimal, it's a little bit harder to do those comparisons. So here we are going to either change them all into fractions or all into decimals. And you guys are going to be able to choose which way works best for you. Now, let me really quick, I'm going to do a couple erasing here. Then we can get started with a couple examples. You guys are my phone today. My computer died. So this is what we're going to do. Okay. First one, let's take a look at this. If we have 1 over 10 and 0.09. A little harder to tell when we have that fraction and a decimal. So I'm going to change these both into the same format. Now, it's completely up to you how you'd like to change this. In this case, I'm going to change this one into a decimal. So I already have my 0.09, and I'm going to think about how I say that. I say it as 1/10. And that is how I'm going to be writing it, as 0.1. Here we have something in the tenths. Oh, we have a 0. So here in this one, we know that that 1/10 is greater than 0.9. I could also switch it up and write these both in fraction form. So here I have 1/10. I'm going to think about how I say this. 9/100, 9/100. Here I know that that 1/10, that 1/10, is going to be larger than our 9/100. If you need another visual, another way to think of it, we could change this so that it was out of 100, so they have the same denominator, times 10 times 10. Here we know that 10/100 is going to be greater than 9/100. Okay. Next example, we're going to throw in some negative numbers. So remember, with our negative, if we go further over to the left, okay, that is going to be that smaller number, that least number. So here I'm going to take a look at negative 3/5 and negative 0.35. Difficult to tell when we are looking at a fraction and a decimal. So I'm going to change these both into decimals. So I already have this decimal here. Now I'm going to change this one into a decimal. I have two different ways. I could think of what it is out of 10, okay, times 2 times 2, 6/10, and write it as 6/10. Or I could do my division method. 3 divided by 5, I'm going to get that same answer as 0.6. So here I have my 0.6, and remember it is a negative number. So I have 0.6 and 0.35. If I was to put this on a number line, which you guys do have the option as you're going through your assignment, that 0.35 is going to be further right than that negative 0.6, which is going to be further over to the left. So here, that negative 0.35 is going to be greater. There's going to be some comparison ones where we have greater than or less than. Some they're going to have you put it on a number line first so that you can have that visual. Others, you're just going to be able to take a look at that number and decide if it's going to be greater than or less than. Let's take a look at now some ordering from least to greatest. So keep in mind, the book does switch back between least to greatest and greatest to least, but for today, we're going to look at least to greatest. If I have these numbers here, so I'm going to start with all integers. So here I have some positive and negative numbers. Remember, when we get further away to the left, that's going to be our least numbers. So our smallest one, -8. Then I go -3, -1, and then lastly, my positive number, which is 4. So there'll be a couple examples where we're going to be having positive and negative numbers. On to our next step. Now we're going to be throwing in some other rational numbers. So here I have -4/5, -1/2, 0.25, and -0.2. Now, this is where I was telling you that you do need to have that same form. So here we have fractions and decimals. What I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to change these all into, let's go fractions on this one. So I'm going to keep these fractions the same, our 4/5, our 1/2, and then I'm going to change these ones into our fractions. So this one right here, now I can think logically, I know that 0.25, I know that's a fourth. Or I could also think, okay, 25/100. Oh, I can divide both those by 25, and I would have 1/4. This one, think about how I say it. I say it as 2/10. Oh, but I can simplify here. Okay, so I'm going to simplify to -1/5. Now I need to figure out where my numbers come into play here. I need to figure out if I'm looking at a number line, where would they fall? If it helps you to have the same denominator, that is a really helpful thing to kind of take a look at. Some of you guys I know can look at these and be like, oh, hey, yep, I know that -4/5, okay, that's further away than my -1/5. But I'm going to show you really quick if we change these all to have a common denominator. Now the common denominator that I'm going to be using is going to be 20. Here, this one is going to change to negative, what do we have, times 4, negative 16 over 20. This one's going to change to negative 10 over 20. We have 5 over 20. And then we have negative 4 over 20. This gives us another visual, a quick way for us to be able to tell our order here. So we know we have our smallest number because that's the furthest away from 0. And then our next one. And then we go our negative 4 over 20. And then our positive number, our 0.25. So when we're writing this one, oh, you guys, it was already in order for us, wasn't it? No, hold up. Sorry. I'm trying to do too many things at once. Okay, so we could switch up our order there. So if we're taking a look at this one, we go negative 4/5, negative half, or 1 over 2. Then we do our negative 0.2, or 2/10, and then our positive 0.25. When we're looking at our ordering from least to greatest, or from greatest to least, notice the difference when we do have these in the same format. Like I said, you don't have to change these into common denominators. However, it is best if you do take a look at these examples and have them in the correct format. So either both fractions or both decimals. For your assignment today, you are going to be doing page 79 and 80 out of your practice book. This page right here, page 80, is focusing on word problems. For your word problems, I want you to remember those words that we talked about before when we're saying above 0 or taking away or a deposit. Think about those words that we talked about yesterday, and that will help us with our positive and negative numbers. If you have any questions, please make sure that you ask. Have a good one.